What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Coach Joe here with heartathletics.com, and we're going to do an amazing presentation with Coach Mark going over muscle development and how to specifically grow your muscle. This is from one of our requests from Chris inside the community group at Heartletics. He asked us about, hey, why don't we do a nice little presentation on more specifics on how to grow the muscle, how to develop the muscle. Obviously, we're going to put a little, Heartletics twist to all this to make sure that it's all based around somebody's lifestyle. So this is going to be good for anybody that is looking for just the science application. Wow, I can't even say that word. The science part to growing your muscle, but then also how to do it in a way where it's sustainable, because that's really the foundation. That's really what we focus on the most at Heartletics. So Mark, let's dive it right in, brother. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, like Coach Joe said, we're going to tackle the some of the science behind muscle growth. If we can go on to the next slide there. Specifically, we're talking about skeletal muscle because, there's various types of muscles in the body, cardiac, et cetera. But we're talking about here today is skeletal muscle, which is composed of the thread-like myofibrils and the sarcomeres. And those form the overall muscle fiber, which are the basic unit of contraction. And contraction is basically how, we move, by contracting our muscles. So what happens is the neurons within your body, those are kind of like the messengers. They send messages to your muscles to contract. And the ability to activate these neurons and have the muscles contract, efficiently, quickly, that's what's really we're talking about when we talk about what makes you stronger. So motor unit recruitment also helps to explain why after practice, certain movements become easier to perform, right? And most of the initial strength gains that you see are quicker and happen faster when you first start out, because muscle growth tends to occur more steadily after this initial period of strength gain, because that's when you're more easily, able to activate these muscles. It's a newer, stress that you're putting on these muscles. After you work out, your body repairs or replaces damaged muscle fibers through a cellular process where it's basically fusing the muscle fibers together. And that's forming these new muscle protein strands, which are these, myofibrils. And as these repaired myofibrils increase in thickness and number, that's what we are talking about when we always talk about hypertrophy, right? Growth. It's the increase in the thickness and number of these fibers. So I can't speak today. Muscle growth occurs whenever the rate of this muscle protein synthesis is greater than the rate of muscle protein breakdown, meaning that you're building more than you're breaking down. This doesn't actually happen during the process of your exercise, your weightlifting. This happens when you rest. So when you rest and the muscles are being repaired, that's when you're actually experiencing the growth. So, there's basically three areas that we look at when we talk about muscle growth. And the first is muscle tension. So muscle growth requires increasing the stress on the muscles beyond the previous levels and capacity. This is what we're talking about when we talk about progressive overload, right? So the main way is, to continually lift progressively heavier weights. There's other ways to do that as well. That's the most basic, right? You could be looking at, more, shorter rest times. You could be looking at higher number of reps. But the basic, philosophy here is, to be progressively putting more stress on. This is going to change the chemistry of the muscle, and that's going to allow for growth factors that include what's called mTOR activation and satellite cell activation. So mTOR is the target of rapamycin, which is a highly conserved, basically, part of the chemical, that controls cell growth and metabolism in response to nutrients, growth factors, cellular energy, stress. So muscular tension also dramatically affects the connection of the motor units to the muscle cells. So two other factors, these are two other factors that help explain why some people can be stronger, but not as big as others. It's really about this recruitment. So if we move on to slide 4, we talk about muscle damage now. So the soreness after a workout is indicative of the damage you are inflicting on the muscles, and this releases inflammatory molecules and immune system cells that activate the cells that jumpstart you into action. So you don't have to be sore for muscle growth, but you do have to stress and damage the muscle. And then that's so one is muscle tension, two is muscle damage, and three is metabolic stress. So if you've ever felt the burn of an exercise, right, had the kind of pump in the gym, that's the effect of metabolic stress. And that causes the cell swelling around the muscle, which helps to contribute to muscle growth. This is from the addition of muscle glycogen, which helps to swell the muscle on the connective tissue. This type of growth is known as sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and it's one of the ways people can get the appearance of larger muscles, right? We talk about that pump in the gym, that's this metabolic stress. Hormones are also an important part of muscle growth and repair. So we're looking at things like insulin growth factor, IGF-1, and in particular, mecho growth factor, right, MGF, and testosterone. Those are the two most vital mechanisms that promote muscle growth. And here you could see, right, the effects of testosterone. You're talking about, bone mass, density. You're talking muscle growth and strength. Positive effects on the skin. As far as the brain, right, we talk about increased sex drive, mood, confidence, red blood cell production. Obviously, right, testosterone is linked directly to the sex organs. So testosterone is the main hormone that, most people think about when they're working out with weights. And testosterone increases protein synthesis and inhibits the protein breakdown. So again, that whole ratio where you want the synthesis to outweigh the breakdown to see that growth. It also activates the satellite cells and stimulates other anabolic hormones. So most testosterone is bound in the body, and therefore it's not available to use, right? Up to like 98% of it is bound up. But strength training seems to help not only release the testosterone, but also make the receptors of your muscle cells a lot more sensitive to the free testosterone that you do have. So it's actually helping to make the testosterone that is free more useful to you. Testosterone can also stimulate growth hormone responses because it increases the presence of those neurotransmitters that we talked about, right? The way that we kind of send those signals through at the damaged fiber site, and that's going to help to activate tissue growth and help grow more muscle. IGF regulates muscle mass by enhancing protein synthesis. So it facilitates glucose uptake. It repartitions the uptake of amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, into the skeletal muscles. And once again, it's also activating the satellite cells to increase muscle growth. So let's talk a little bit about rest. If you don't provide your body with adequate rest, and of course nutrition along with it, you can actually reverse these anabolic processes and put your body into basically a catabolic or destructive state. So the response of muscle protein metabolism to resistance exercise lasts about 24 to 48 hours. So the interaction between protein metabolism and like any meals consumed in this period are going to determine the impact of the diet on muscle hypertrophy. So keep in mind, there's a limit on how much your muscles can grow depending on your gender, your age, genetics. But, within that range, right, having the proper rest and the proper nutrition is going to help you get the most out of what you are capable of achieving. And then the last thing I want to talk about is muscle protein synthesis. And muscle growth is ultimately achieved with the combination of the resistance training and protein intake. This is one of the reasons that we're always stressing protein, right? Muscle protein synthesis provides us the means to gauge how effectively these things, these interventions are working. Basically, it's a physiological process, right, by which we increase the linkages to improve muscle growth. And the actual gains are going to vary from person to person, but protein being the building block of muscles is, basically the kind of the foundation for all this. So while muscle protein synthesis is a naturally occurring metabolic process, the protein there is then produced to repair the muscle damage, right, that's caused by the exercise. So basically, the protein is a key part of rebuilding the muscle that you break down during the exercise. This occurs from the amino acids binding to skeletal muscle proteins And that's what's going to lead to increased muscle size. And this works to counteract the muscle protein breakdown and the protein loss that happens during exercise. So the breakdown of muscles, may sound negative, but when muscles are damaged, right, they will also build back larger. So this is all part and parcel of that process, making sure that ratio is there for protein synthesis to basically outweigh protein breakdown.
So Mark just talked a lot about the underneath the surface, right? What goes on underneath, and inside the muscles that we can't see, right? And we don't really have a lot of control over. I mean, obviously, yes, sleep, yes, protein, right? Yes, different aspects of training, right? But this is why Mark and myself always like to just educate our members as far as, sometimes there's some stuff that goes on underneath the surface that we can't see and you can't either, and so that's why maybe the numbers might fluctuate, right? Let's just say, hey, muscle weighs more than fat, which it does. So you might see the number on the scale increase. It doesn't mean that you're not progressing. It could mean you're definitely progressing, right? But there's so many aspects to what's going on underneath the surface that we can't see, and so Mark did a great job of breaking all that down. What I want to do is simplify things in terms of how do you really get the most bang for your buck when it comes to training, right? Because that's how you build the muscle. That's how you recover the muscle. That's how you, properly train and, effectively repair that muscle growth after it's being damaged from the workouts. But how do you get the most bang for your buck in a sense where it's very easy, And let's first start off by talking about workout splits. There's so many different ones. Now, this is going to be more geared towards the individuals that's going to the gym or they're at home with some equipment, right? If let's just say you're doing some body weight circuits and you hear me say, hey, don't train a muscle more than, 2-3 times a week. Well, let that go in one ear and out the other, because if you're doing body weight workouts, where it's pretty not too much of a resistance factor or an impact on your muscles for needing that extra time to recover, it's perfectly fine. You can do that every day. In fact, a lot of our members simply, do different crunches and do different push-ups each and every day. So this is once again going to be more geared toward the individuals that's at the gym or at home with certain amount of these equipments. And so let's talk about a workout split, then this is basically your routine that best suits your schedule. And one of the things that we're pretty much always tell everybody is like, hey, try your best to stay away from the bro split, which is the one that's right up here, where basically you're sticking to one muscle group per time a week. It's not effective. And I'm going to share with you guys exactly why. So what's more effective is doing something that's maybe a full body workout where, hey, if you can get to the gym, right, or work out at home with some equipment 3 times a week, then you should be doing some full body workouts, simply because you can train each muscle group at least, right, 2-3 times per week. I mean, look at the simple fact of there's 52 weeks in a year. If let's say you're only going to change your workout and let's just say train your chest 1 time a week. Well, hey, that's 52 chances of getting a muscle stimulus response, as opposed if you're working out each muscle group twice a week. Well, hey, now let's say you have about 104 different chances to get that muscle response, right? So that's why it's always better to train each muscle group at least 2 to 3 times a week. It's somewhere in that wheelhouse. If let's say you're going to the gym 4 times a week, you can also do a split like a push-pull rest, push-pull type deal, or maybe an upper body or lower body type deal, where once again, it just whatever best suits your schedule. And that's the real big thing that we want to, encourage our members and as well as anybody to really focusing on a workout split that best suits your schedule. It all boils down to something that you can be consistent with. 5-day routines, there's so many different ones. There's 6 different, 6 different routines for a 6-day split. There's so many different ways to skin a cat, but the basics is really this right here is focus on training each muscle group at least 2 to 3 times a week. That's it, right? 2 to 3 times is a really good wheelhouse. If you're focusing on those heavy compound movements, heavy compound lifts, like squats, bench, deadlifts, I would say 2 times a week is great, because once again, as Mark kind of mentioned, where the growth comes from, it's not from the resistance training. That's where the damage comes from. Where the growth comes from with building that muscle, it's through the recovery. And if let's say you're doing squats every single day, heavy compound exercises, heavy compound lifts, and you're going really heavy with it, it's going to give your body a hard chance of actually recovering properly. So play it safe. My recommendation is 2 to 3 times per week. You're going to see better results by far if you're definitely doing it just 1 time a week, training each muscle group. Now, when it comes to training a muscle, what's the RPE that you should be focused on? And the RPE is basically, the rate of, perceived exertion, where how much energy are you using, the intensity that I like to say that you're focusing on that set exercise. Because if you're going to the gym and let's just say you're using very light weights and high reps and you're just kind of going through the motions, then yeah, you could probably get away with doing squats every single day because your body's going to have a greater chance of recovering, but you're probably not going to get the most bang for your buck. So anywhere from a 7 to a 9 is a really good wheelhouse and where you should be sticking at. And the best way to kind of focus on this chart right here is think about if you're going to a gym and let's just say your workout for that day for a set exercise had, let's just say 3 sets of, I don't know, let's just say 10 reps. We'll use that for example. Well, I would say that, the weight that you're pushing up, if let's say you're getting 10 reps and it's really hard, for a fact that you have maybe one more rep that you can get in, then guess what? That's right here on this scale. If let's say you save a few, reps in reserve, so to speak, and you have some energy left, right? And maybe you can do 3 or, 2 more reps after that set or, whatever the case may be, then you're around this range right here. So sticking in this range is perfectly fine. Obviously at some certain thresholds, it's okay to, go for an RPE 10, but just understand this, when you're going that heavy or going that hard with that resistance training, you're going to need more time to recover in between sets or in between workout days. So don't confuse it. At the end of the day, we try to just simplify things at Heartletics with mixing in, obviously, the science of, different attributes of burning body fats, of putting on that muscle, but most importantly, making sure that it is programmed in a way where it best suits somebody's lifestyle. And when it comes to training a muscle, Mark says it all the time. I say it all the time. The training aspect is literally the icing on the cake. Mark mentioned about the recovery in terms of, proper nutrition with the protein, with also stress and the sleep and those attributes, right? And that's part of our wheelhouse about our 7 essential fat loss habits that we go over at Heartletics. So don't think that, oh man, I just have to, work out, right? And that's it, right? That's just a very small, surface level piece of the puzzle. At the end of the day, the mindset is huge. The nutrition is huge. The recovery is even greater. You want to make sure that everything is turning in the right direction, not just the resistance training. That's just one little piece to the pie. So regardless of what you do, whether you're working on the gym, whether you're doing heavy compound lifts or not, whether you're working out at home with or without equipment, whether you're just doing body weight circuits or whether you're just going for a walk and really trying to dial in the nutrition, what you want to focus on the most, and this was always what leads to success with any of our members, is doing something that you can consistently do. So the best rule of thumb is take a look at your overall schedule. What is some days of the week that you can dedicate and prioritize your training days, whether that's walking, whether that's going for, some body weight circuits, because that's maybe all you have access to, because maybe you don't go to the gym or maybe you don't have equipment at home, and that's perfectly fine. Or maybe you do go to the gym, regardless, what best suits your schedule. And then pick on something that you enjoy doing. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of full body workouts. I just don't get that same intensity during those workouts. And my body actually has a harder time with recovery, so I like different attributes of different workout splits. That is fun. That's enjoyable, because I know for a fact if I'm going to the gym and I'm pushing around some heavy weight, I'm doing so in a way where, I'm having fun, I'm going to be more likely to stick with that. So don't have anybody ever tell you, hey, there's a one size fits all. You need to be doing this in order to get the best results. There's so much flexibility, just like how with nutrition, right? Fitting in your favorite foods, fitting in, your donuts or, some alcoholic beverages from time to time. There's a lot of flexibility, just like how there's a lot of flexibility with the training. But regardless of what you do, as always, just like what Mark showed with his wristband, it's consistency is key, right? That is the name of the game with everything. So hopefully you guys got some value. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. When it comes to putting on that lean muscle tissue, keep this in mind. Yes, focus on the progressive overload. Yes, focus on the resistance training, right? Try to engage those muscles, but also understand this, the recovery that's what's going to build that muscle. That's what's going to help you overall, right? It's the proper nutrition. It's the stress management. It's the sleep. It's everything that Mark just kind of talked about in the presentation. So hopefully you guys got some value. And as always, we'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts.